welcome to Let's Talk Recovery Houston. Super excited about Zee today. I've got to hear his story before, and I really think all of you are going to like his story. And with that, I'm just going to hand it straight over to Mr. Zee.
Hello guys, like she said, my name is Zee. So I've had a quite bit of a journey in this recovery and being part of the program. And from right off the bat, I can tell you guys that it's been an amazing journey. The people, friends, and some people that I actually call family now, has been a blessing to my life. Little bit, going back a little bit before I got into the program, I was straight out of prison, and I had a couple of years sober because I was locked up, and I had made a decision that I didn't want to use or drink anymore. I had made that decision for myself, but I was powerless. I didn't have the tools to, stay with that decision. And it only took me 3 days to get back out to what I used to do and what I used to be like after I got out of prison. And it was tough, like within a couple days, I was back on same exact things that I was doing before I went to prison. And it made me, it like all of a sudden opened up my eye, like, holy shit, this is not where I want to be. And so, when I was locked up, I had went to an AA meeting, not to even go to the AA meeting. I had, just because so I can leave the tank, because I would be like locked up in the tank all day. So I just wanted to leave and go walk around the cells. And, so like I had went to the AA meeting, and that day I enjoyed people sharing stuff. And I talked to the guy that had came over there that was holding the meeting. And, I told him that I don't want to go back to my life when I get out. So he had told me about a AA club, and he told me just show up over there when you get out. And that popped into my head, after, a week of being out of prison. And so that's what I did, 6 a.m, high up my ass, still haven't slept. I showed up to this AA club. I stayed there for the first meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting, back to back. And I really wanted the recovery. I really wanted to stay sober. I did not want to go back to my old ways, because I knew either I'd be locked back up again or I'll be dead. Like, that seriously is like the end of all this. And, I'm 31 years old, and I've been doing this for a long time. It's time for change. It was time for change. And, I raised my hand, and I shared, at every single meeting, back to back that I went. And in the last meeting, somebody approached me, and from there, my journey started. I got myself, they got me into a sober living place, because I didn't want to go back to where I was living, because it's just the environment and everything around me, I wouldn't be able to stay sober. So I got into a sober living, and I got me a sponsor to start doing the step work. And even though I started doing all that, I still wasn't really at it 100%. I wasn't really taking the step work seriously. And things that my sponsor was telling me, I didn't do them, all the way. He gave me suggestions that I shouldn't get in a relationship and whatnot. And I didn't listen to him. And when I even told him about this girl that I was talking to, he was like, dude, especially that one, stay away. I didn't listen, I hard-headed with ego, and I didn't listen, but yet I still wanted to stay sober. You know, I was like, what does that have to do with anything with me being in a relationship and staying sober? I could still be sober and stay in a relationship. So, you know, she ended up like going back out, and, you know, obviously like I wasn't okay with that. So I broke up with her. And the day that I broke up with her, she went back out really hard and she OD'd and died that night. You know, and I'm like, you know, I have like 2-3 months sober, and that really, really messed with my head. You know, that really put me on the edge for sure. You know, did I want to go back out? No, but would I have probably done it if I didn't have such a strong foundation, you know, in my circle around me? I probably would have, you know, even though that I didn't want to. But, you know, thank God that, like, you know, I had surrounded myself with so many people with, you know, with strong sobriety and recovery around me. And I did it, you know. And what was so hard that, like, at that point, that same day, like, I called my sponsor and told him that, and he fired me that day as being his sponsee. And it was like out of love, because he was like, we were like really close friends, and he was like, because we're friends, you don't really like take me seriously, the things that I tell you, and you need to find a different sponsor. So for a little bit, I didn't have a sponsor, but I was still going to the meetings and stuff. And, you know, my current sponsor at the moment, you know, he had seen me in the meetings and stuff, and he kept asking me if I have a sponsor. And, you know, one day he like got my contact, and like he was like, we're gonna do the steps together, blah, blah. I was like, okay. So I gave it to him, but I never called him. So like one day, I don't know, where he like calls me. He's like, hey, what's up, man? What you doing? I'm like, oh, nothing. This is like, you know, I was like, oh, this is the part I made a mistake. I'm like, nah, I'm just chilling at home. He was like, oh, okay, cool. Hey, hold on, let me call you back in a minute. I was like, okay. And then like in a couple minutes, he calls me back. He was like, all right, come outside, let's go. I'm like, wait, what? Where are we going? So he practically like kidnapped me, you know, and we went and got right down to business. You know, we started our steps, you know, and went at it, you know. And from that day, you know, he has helped me to grow through the growth that I've done, you know, I went through today. And, you know, for me, the recovery and doing the steps was one part of my journey. Another thing was, cause like I'm an extrovert, like I like to go out, I like to hang out, you know. And a lot of people, when they become sober, like you can't really go back to your, you know, old friends and stuff and people who you used to party with, because that's just gonna bring you back to the same spot that you used to be. It's like having to find like new people to hang out with and like new friends. So like that's like one thing I was struggling with. And I remember I went to a young people AA conference, which was Texipal, and I got hooked. You know, I was like, I love this. You know, this is like a whole bunch of like party animals, but they're all like sober and like partying their ass off, you know? And it was awesome. I'm like, that's what I want to do, you know? So I ended up joining a committee, which is Hackipal, Heartland Area Conference of Young People of AA. And, you know, I am a event co-chair for that host committee. I'm also entertainment chair for Tikipal at the moment. And, you know, being involved in that, it's been so amazing. Like all the things that we get to do as sober people, but together and have fun, like throwing events, like getting all these young people, you know, united to each other, show them that you can still have fun during recovery. You know, recovery does not need to be boring, does not need to be harsh. You know, you can like fellowship during like recovery is like a really that has been like the main my sponsor got me on that, but like it has been like a main part of my recovery. I invested a lot of time in fellowship and recovery. It helped me stay sober, and they say everybody's recovery is different, but like fellowship has been a big part of my recovery for sure. And I went through the steps and all that, being through, doing the conferences and stuff, throwing events, making this thing happen, making sure our conference is gonna come to be live, and doing all that, I still, sponsored people, after I did my steps. And I sponsored people. I do like a lot of service work, leading and chairing meeting. I remember I was so nervous. Like I had 3 months, 90 days sober, and my sponsor had me chair a meeting for the first time at one of the AA clubs, and I was so nervous. Like it was a candlelight meeting, so like I'm so happy that like nobody really got to see me, but like my armpits was probably like
super sweaty.
Super sweaty. I probably like my sleeves was all wet and everything, cause like I've never done anything like that, and like in front of a bunch of people, and it was just like, and it felt so good after I did that, because usually like before when I went to like meetings and stuff, and I'm sitting there. And, I listen to the leader share the topic, half the time I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, when it's like time for me to share. And, half the time trying to like catch on with like who said what. Like I got stuff out the meeting, but it wasn't the full potential till I started chairing and leading the meeting. Cause like I say my part in the meeting and, I share a little bit. And then like the topic, and I could just sit there and listen to everybody else's share, and that's when I like really learned how to become teachable. That's like another big part of the recovery, because like our egos, as an alcoholics and addicts, our egos like high up in there, man, when we become sober. And to put our egos aside and become teachable was like a really great challenge for me, because I have like really high ego, and I was able to do that during that process. And I just like last week, I came up on my 1 year of sobriety.
Yay!
And like if you ask my sponsor, he'll tell you, oh, that's a miracle, because like I knew I wanted to stay sober, but like I didn't think that I would be able to, and it's like a great achievement. Through my 31 years of living in this planet, I have not had that much of a long time of sober. I've always like done something, either if it was drinking, smoking something, doing some type of drug or whatever. I've never been sober that long ever since I started doing these things. And to be sober that long and be so involved in like helping others and being part of this community, it's just like an amazing feeling, And like right now, during this whole coronavirus going around, that has affected me big time, because like I said earlier, like I'm an extrovert, I like I lived off of it, like throwing these events and getting together and all that. We can't do none of all that. And our conference got postponed till next year because of this, but that's not gonna stop us. So like it was really tough for me this like past couple months, like me right before coming up on a year. Throughout my whole sobriety this past time, I have not had this much like struggle in my sobriety to stay sober. It was like super, super hard. But just because I have really good support, really good friends like in recovery that helped me with so much knowledge, that like to help me to get through it. And like staying in the book, the book has helped me, through a lot. Like, I have people like call me and text me and like, oh, I don't know what part of the book to read and stuff. And just to be able to give somebody that info to help them to get through the day, that like feeds my soul, you know, that makes me feel good about myself and where I'm at in life right now. You know, like a year ago, getting out of prison, literally starting zero, if not negative. I was negative, like, you know, starting with nothing, nowhere to go, not even have any clothes to wear, you know, no car, no job. And within 1 year, where I'm at right now, it really is a miracle, you know, it really is a miracle, and it's all God's work. I can tell you guys that. And you know, sometimes I see people with like, you know, I only have 1 year, right? And I'm all like excited about it. I see people with like decades of sobriety. Like this morning, I know a gentleman that he celebrated his 51 years of sobriety. 51 years, man. I haven't even been alive that long, you know? And it's just so amazing. Like, we couldn't, you know, celebrate with him his birthday, but we did like this little parade, and then we all got in our cars and like drove by his house and hung. We had like words written on our windows and stuff, and like hollered at him, said happy birthday, and like doing things like that, you know? It's just, it's fun. It helps my recovery. It helps my serenity. And, you know, still like gets you involved in all this. And there's been so much, you know, so many stories and so many events that has happened and stuff that like I could sit here and talk about. But I know there's like Ashley, I know you have like some questions that you think is gonna help out, you know, with whoever is listening here. And, you know, I would love to answer any questions or, you know, anything you want to know about me or how I can help anybody. You know, I'm all up for that. And so, like, you can.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I love hearing you talk. You do have a good story. Well, because like, and you touched on a good point. So, a year ago, you didn't have anything. Do you know what I mean? That's how it was for me when I got out of jail. And I used to hear like all these sayings, right? Like, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle, and easy does it, right? And I used to think those were super just corny and cliche. But it's really true, you know? Like, I really think if you don't give up, like, the promises really do come true. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I didn't believe it at first.
Yeah, I didn't either. I was just like, whatever.
No,
this is it. Nothing's going to happen.
Bullshit.
Like,
you know? Like, I know some people that told me, like, oh, I have like 12, 13 years sober at the moment. I'd be like, oh, okay, whatever. And then, like, later after, like I pull them to the side and I'd be like, so for real, like, so what all have you done in this 12 years? You can tell me, you know, like, not believing them, you know? And it's just, yeah, you're absolutely right. Promises do come true.
they really do come true. And here's, okay, so you're involved in all the pause, right? I think that's probably helped you a lot.
I love how you say pause.
Yeah, because there's so many of us, like,
Which we like to
paw, hacky paw.
We like to call them
white paw or something, right?
Well, we like to call it white paw.
Okay.
It's a young people AA.
Okay.
Yeah, so we call it white paw. Paw.
What would you say, and I'm going to use Aiden as an example. So, when we could have meetings, I would bring Aiden to the young people's meeting on Sunday, because Aiden is not.
Okay.
And like maybe the first or the second one, he leaned over and he was like, okay, so they're all really sober? And I'm like, yes, no, they're all really sober. And he's like, okay, no, they're like kind of around my age, because he's 16.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, so they don't do anything? He's like, they're really sober? And I'm like, yes, they're really sober. Like, this isn't like they just show up on Sundays and like they're not sober. So what would you say to people that maybe don't understand young people in AA, right? Because I know you have some old timers maybe, or people that are like, no, they haven't gone through, right, the things that maybe like older people have gone through. Or maybe they're just staying sober because their parents are making them stay sober, right? Or whatever. Like, so what would you say to those people that are like, no, they're not really sober? Because when I go to those meetings, there's a lot of young people that have a bunch of sobriety, like years, longer than I have.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So what would you say to those people?
So like, there's like bunch of different waves I've seen this. I see a lot of young people over there at our meetings, and not all of them stay sober for long. Like, a lot of them like keep going back out when they want to stay sober, but they can't. And I totally understand that, because like when I was that age, like I tell you right now, I'm like, no way I could have stayed sober when I was that young. Like, like parties, going out, college, hell no. Like, I'm not staying sober, but at the same time, I kind of wish that like I had this tool. I had these old timers. I had these people that I could see. I could listen to their stories. I could go to a speaker night and listen to their stories, their background stories, and where they are now. I wish I had that tool when I was young. Because like if I did, like if you look at like what I've been able to achieve in 1 year, like if I could have like avoided all this time that I wasted during my addiction, where I could have been in life, it's like I would have been like in a completely total place. But one thing I believe is that like God always has a plan, and maybe my plan was to go through that pain, go through that, all that, so maybe like I can help somebody else, to understand. Maybe I could help a newcomer, a young newcomer, to show them, hey, look, I did this. I was that bad kid. I was that kid that was skipping school to go get high. I was that kid. And like at the age of 30, I had to start from zero, from lower than where you are. You were 18 years old, and I'm lower than you. I have nothing, I have less than a homeless person, and to start from all that, what I would say to a young person is that like you can do it. And to take that information from the people that have the sobriety, like you said, like, we know people that like got sober at the age of 17. They came to the realization that this path they're taking is going to either send them to prison or die. And they made that decision to stay sober. And now by grace of God, they have 13, 14 years, 19 years. Dude is like 33 or something, and he has like 15 years sober. Yeah. Like what? Like half a year, like it's just crazy. And it's so amazing to see that, and take them as example, for where you could be and what you can achieve, And one thing that this program, it helps you stay sober, but it also helps you grow in your personality and grow to become a better human, better part of your society, to do better for others and yourself. It teaches you how to live good. You could apply this book to your way of living. Like AA is not it's not just a book, it's a way of living, it will do miracles, and I am a living example of that.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you think is the hardest part of recovery? Like, what's been the hardest part of recovery for you? Because it's not easy all the time, right?
It is.
You know what I mean? It's not like puppy dogs and rainbows as soon as you get sober all the time, right?
It's
like life happens.
It's not.
Shit happens.
No.
Sometimes days are crappy.
Yeah, most days, it definitely, recovery has definitely not been easy, Like, you definitely would have to want it, like, badly. You have to be thirsty for it, And you would only get that once you have had enough, when you realize that it's time. Like, you gotta sit and look at your future and no, it's time. I could see where I'm gonna end up. Like I said, it was by looking at other people, where they can end up. I've lost so many people to this disease. You know, it's so sad. You know, I could sit here and tell you all these amazing, beautiful people that we've lost to this program.
God, just this year too.
Just seriously, you know, it's sad, but like, you know, those having to lose your friends in recovery that you sat in the room with them and you had such an amazing time, to lose them in the recovery to this battle, I think has been like the hardest part of recovery. Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, it's sad. I think for a long time, like I didn't really think people died from this, if that makes sense, right? Because when I was in Houston before, like I did not know any opiate addicts. That was like not a thing. And then, you know, I was gone for a couple of years and I came back and it was like, everyone is an opiate addict. You know what I mean? And it was like my first year in recovery and I'd gotten really close to some girls and they really wanted this thing. I think that's what I didn't understand too, because I think I had this idea that like, well, if you want it bad enough, right, like everything's gonna be fine. And I lost someone to this disease and I was like, holy shit, like this is like for real, like this is serious. So yeah, it's sad. What is your favorite thing about recovery and what has been your least favorite?
So, I mean,
step work. No, I'm just joking.
No, you know, step work, you know, some parts of step work has been, you know, my least favorite. You know, like doing my fourth step, you know, even though it did help me to get through, was my least favorite part of, you know, recovery. And doing some amends, it takes like a lot of times you just don't want to do that, and some of it was really hard, and definitely not my favorite thing, but it definitely is part of recovery. And once you do it, it does give you that spiritual growth and, you know, help you become a better person and handle yourself better. Like you literally will have a spiritual awakening, you know, and it's not like we were saying, it's not easy, you know, but it's something that we got to do. And we, you know, and eventually it will help us. The promises tell us that. And
any advice to people struggling, dragging
well,
their
wait.
fourth steps?
So I want to touch back on this. Like, you know, my favorite part, I know I said it a little earlier too, but I can't get enough of it. My favorite part is the fellowship of this program. That is like my absolute favorite of this part. You know, just like seeing everybody happy during sobriety is amazing. It is so amazing. And that's definitely my favorite part.
Conventions are fun, dude.
Yeah,
they really are.
They really
are fun.
Yeah.
So the one in Louisiana, is that the one that got pushed back?
So
that one was supposed to be in
mostly that
September.
was Iqbal.
Okay.
I don't think it has got set back yet. No, I don't think it has got set back yet. But however, Hakipa that, you know, I'm event coacher of, that one has got postponed for next year. And I'm also entertainment chair for Tiki Paw, which happens every quarterly, you know, it's for Texas. And like we meet up at Slumber Falls and like, you know, we go float the river sober. We go float the river sober. Like, I have never heard that before. You know, we rent out cabins and we get together, we have meetings, and you know, that is still up in the air. We're not sure if we're gonna be able to do it yet or not. But like it's a lot of conferences did get postponed because of this thing, and you know, it's definitely been like a heart aching thing going around, but you know, we got to take extra measures to make sure that everybody's safe, for sure.
Where do you think you'd be now had you not started this journey a year ago? If you would have just been like, no, like I got this, I can do it.
For sure. I'd be there's only two places I would be. Either it would be 6 feet on the ground or back in prison cell in isolation, for sure. There's only 2 options out of that if I was in this program. 100% guaranteed.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. So where do you see yourself in a month from now? Or 3 months? Or 6 months? If you keep doing everything that you're doing?
Well, okay, so a month from now, from what I'm seeing, I don't think we're getting out of this COVID. So like, I'll probably be at home in my bed watching Netflix and doing Zoom meetings, right? Still doing the thing, but all over Zoom. In 3 months, I'll probably be, hopefully this thing will be over with, and I'll probably back out and doing the white paws and, back to like meeting with sponsees and going to the meetings and chairing, leading meetings and having my book studies. And, within a year from now, I don't know. I haven't thought about like when I'm gonna be in a year. I've been just so excited for having this year right now and so blessed to have it. But I know that if I keep up what I'm doing, I'm gonna be in a good place. For sure, I'm gonna be in a good place. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about family for a minute.
Okay.
How do you think your using affected your family? Because you don't have kids, right?
I do have a kid.
You do have kids? Okay.
I have a 4-year-old. His name is Cyrus. Although, ever since I've gone out, I have not been able to go see him yet because he's in a different state, and I'm really like trying to get my stuff together, so I can fully be there for him. But man, I tell you. My drug addiction has definitely affected my family. My son's mom was a week before due, and I got charged with my dope case, and I went to prison. And after I got locked up, a week later, she gave birth to my son. So I wasn't even there, when he was born. And that definitely, created some deep resentments towards me. And I regret that, I know I can't take that back from them, but like I can start to show, to make a better person of myself so I can be there for my son, like for sure.
Yeah, and I would say don't get discouraged. I didn't have either one of my kids for 7 years. Because of my addiction. And then it just happened all of a sudden. Aubrey came to live with me in August, and then surprise, Aiden came at Christmas. And so that's like going back to those promises, you know what I mean? Because that wouldn't even have been a possibility if I wouldn't have been sober. You know what I mean? Like, dude, I'm telling you, it works out. Like, I never thought Aiden would come live with me. Ever. Like, when I got an apartment, I got a 2-bedroom apartment for me and Aubrey, and I was just like, he'll come visit if he wants to. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, I'm moving in. I'm like, holy cow. I'm like, okay, we're doing this thing.
Must be exciting.
I was like, okay. So just don't get discouraged. Like, I promise it works out just how it's supposed to. It really does.
Yes, I'm a big believer in that. Yeah.
What about your parents? Have your parents been supportive through this?
Well,
are they? Do you talk to your parents?
So yes, when I was in my addiction, my mom is not here. My mom is back in my country, and I haven't seen her for a really long time. And I didn't talk to my mom for a really long time. I think at one point I went on without talking to my mom for like 15 years.
That's a long time.
That's a very long time. I FaceTime her now like every week, and sometimes in the middle of the week, we talk. There's like, obviously there definitely has been some resentments from my childhood, and and I had to make amends. That was like one of the hard things. That's what I'm talking about. Is like the things that I didn't like that I had to make amends. But like it has definitely helped through, and I definitely like. There was a point that I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. I didn't have a good relationship with my brother. I didn't have a good relationship with my mom. But now, like, my dad loves seeing me, like, being sober and being like, you know, just like the glow in my face, you know, like I can help my dad now, you know, like I call him like, hey dad, do you need anything? You know, it's such a good feeling, like just to like be able to take your dad out to eat, you know. It's like I never did that before, you know. Like it's just like it's such a like great feeling to be able to do all that now, you know. And you know, it kind of makes me regret that, like, why wasn't I able to do it back then, you know? But, you know, now that I have it, I'm definitely not taking it for granted, you know? Definitely not. So, that, you
I
know.
think some people do too. Like, I get frustrated sometimes when, because I didn't have a good relationship with my family growing up. You know what I mean? Both my parents were addicts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really only been like this last year that I've like started to rebuild a relationship with my mom. And I get so discouraged when I see people get sober and they still have these great families, you know, but like they have attitudes with their families. And I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Yes.
Like so many of us like don't have that. Like what's
But
wrong with
like,
you?
the thing is that, like, we went through it, and like we see that, you know, like somebody that don't see it and it's been there for him, they take it for granted, you know. But like we've been there, you know, and now that we have it again, we cherish
Yeah,
that because
we
we
don't
know
take it
what it's like
for
to not
granted.
having it, you know. Absolutely.
Do you think others' opinions of you have changed since you've been in recovery?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah? He's
Absolutely.
like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I remember I went to my old neighborhood where my dad lives, right? And I went to the gas station where like I used to go to that gas station like 2 a.m, tweaked out, you know, and stuff. And like I would like steal shit and stuff. And you know, the guy saw me and he's this Jamaican dude, you know, with his accent. I can't make his accent, but you know, he's a cool ass dude. And he seen me, he was like, wow, bro, you look good, bro. And, you know, I told him like, yeah, man, I'm coming up on the year. He was like, yeah, come through, we're gonna party and celebrate. I'm like, no, I don't celebrate like that no more, you know. But like, you know, they see that, you know, and like, you know, I have like, you know, friends and people in recovery, like they tell me like, all that growth that like we see, you know, sometimes like, you know, I don't even see that in myself, but like when I get that clarification from other people, when they tell me that like they see it in me, like they see my eyes glowing, like, you know, in recovery at the meetings and, you know, being involved, you know, it reminds me, you know, it shows me, okay, maybe I am doing something different, you know. And definitely I definitely see the way my, you know, family looks at me now. Like my brother like always like talk down on me, or like, you know, not talk down on me, like he wasn't happy where I was, you know. He didn't approve of where I was. I didn't approve of where I was, you know, right now. But like now he's like proud of me. Like my aunts, my uncles, they're like proud of me, and it's such a great feeling.
It is. It's a good feeling.
It's such a great feeling.
So if you could tell your old past younger self, right? So if you could send a letter back to yourself, what would you say? What would it be?
You know, I that was like one question I saw that you had in there, and I you know, I thought about it too, and I don't know, like, cause I know if I was to tell myself, hey, like, put the drugs to the side, or don't do it, it's not good for you, it's not gonna lead you where, like, I know I wouldn't have listened.
Yeah.
You know, definitely would have not listened. You know, I would want to tell that, but people told me that every day and I didn't listen, you know? So, like, I don't think anything that I say right now to my old me definitely wouldn't have listened.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have.
Definitely.
Like, no, I'm fine. I got this. Yeah.
You know? So, you know, like I said, everything's happened for a reason.
So if you could tell your future self something, what would it be?
Keep doing what you're doing.
Doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Yes. And look where we have came so far. Yeah.
So how about this? How do you think others like you could benefit from recovery, and should they go down the same path that you have, which would have been sober living, right? Where do you live now? Are you in your own place now?
I have my own place now. Yeah. Yeah, I have my own place now. And you know, I went through like 2 different sober livings. And so what I can tell other people in recovery, everybody's like recovery. They say that everybody's recovery is different. So like one thing that worked for me might not work for somebody else. Like just because like I like to be around other people and socialize and stuff, not everybody else like to do that. But like, definitely do your steps. Be honest. From day one, be honest. Through the program, nobody's gonna judge you. Be honest with yourself, and it takes a whole burden off your back. Like it just makes like you're walking on clouds. When you're around, because you have nothing to hide. You don't have to put any fake face out front. Could be yourself, and like once you do that, everything else really comes easy. The program walks us through it, and like the spiritual awakening of it, it's it will bring you that growth that like you've been looking for all your life. It will give meaning to your life. So definitely, do the recovery, get to the steps, do service work, one way or another, chair meetings, lead meetings, get involved, sponsor other people, even if you don't do service work in the program. I know people that do like service works at church. I know people that like go drive and like, feed the homeless people, or like do some good deeds. It would feed your soul. It will give your life a meaning, like it helps you to get through it. And like, sometimes you really do have to take a day at a time, or an hour at a time. I've been there. Or like a minute at a time, but just be like, for the next 10 minutes, I'm not gonna drink. For the next 30 minutes, I'm not gonna drink. For the next 24 hours, I'm just not gonna drink. Sometimes you gotta take those extra measures, to get where you wanna go. Like we said, it's not easy, not everybody make it, but those who are really want to would make it. And if you really want to, you will have it. Like build a strong foundation. Circle yourself with people like with strong sobriety. There's a lot of people in this program, okay? And there's a lot of people that like, speak of, a lot of great shares and stuff, but like, listen to their stories and like find people that like found a way to stay sober for a long time in the hard times, and learn from them. Become teachable. If I can, help somebody out to like, do the program and stay sober and do good in life and achieve what they wanted, is to become teachable. Become teachable, and you'll find a path, and God will put you in the right path. Sometimes it's not easy. You'll come across, some road bumps and stuff, but it's only for a time. You'll get through it, and you'll achieve the greatest. Absolutely.
That's good. Okay, well, this has been fun. I'm so happy you agreed to do this.
We've been talking about doing this for a while.
I'm so happy.
Yeah.
So, any other parting words of wisdom to anybody out there? You can give shout outs if you want to be like, hey, Mom, or whatever.
I would like to give a shout out definitely to my sponsor, Charlie, Billy, and Prayer. I love you, man. You've been a blessing in my life. Tina, you not give a shit about my feelings, but you definitely give a whole lot about my recovery, and I love that, and I love you for that. You taught me how to be teachable. Definitely want to give a shout out to my dad. He's been out there, and and I'm sorry for all the things I've done, but like today I can be here and help you, and all my family members. Shout out to Elizabeth Wiley. She's been there for me a lot. My girl Callie, she's put up a lot with me. Hopefully we get to hear some of their stories soon. But keep on doing what you guys are doing, and you guys are all a big part of my sobriety, have helped me a lot, and it's you guys and the help of God that I've been able to, you know, make it sober and be here today. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for having all you guys.
That's what's up.
And you too, Ashley.
Well, thank you. I just want to give a shout out real quick to Transformation Enzymes for letting me use their space. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Take care of yourself, help others, and if you are struggling, you can message me on the Facebook page or Let's Talk Recovery Houston at gmail.com. Peace out, guys.